Bullies attacked Arnold Schwarzenegger's son at school. Then the Terminator showed up. The afternoon sun, a weak, pale disk, struggled to pierce the thick, gray cloud cover that hung heavy over the suburban high school. A chill wind, carrying the faint metallic scent of impending rain and the distant hum of traffic, whipped through the empty parking lot, rustling discarded snack wrappers across the asphalt. The air itself felt charged, not just with the weather, but with an unspoken tension that seemed to cling to the brick walls of the school building. A lone figure, broad-shouldered even in a simple dark jacket, walked with a measured, unhurried pace towards the main entrance. His face, partially obscured by the shadow of a baseball cap pulled low, was a study in quiet intensity, his gaze sweeping the surroundings with an almost imperceptible vigilance. The only sound was the crunch of his heavy boots on the gravel path, a rhythmic, deliberate cadence. Inside the school's deserted quad, usually a bustling hub of teenage energy, a different kind of storm was brewing. 3 hulking figures, their jackets emblazoned with crude, spray-painted symbols, had cornered a younger boy against a graffiti-scarred wall. The leader, a burly teenager with a sneer permanently etched on his face and a silver chain glinting around his thick neck, jabbed a finger aggressively at the boy's chest. "Look at this, guys," he growled, his voice thick with menace. "Little Patrick here thinks he's too good for us, thinks his daddy's money makes him special." His 2 cronies, one tall and lanky with a cruel smirk, the other short and stocky with fists like ham hocks, chuckled darkly, closing in. Patrick, though visibly shaken, stood his ground, his jaw clenched, refusing to meet their eyes. A few students, lingering near the lockers, cast nervous glances, their faces a mix of fear and morbid curiosity, but none dared to intervene. "What's the matter, tough guy?" The leader, whose name was Rex, sneered, pushing Patrick harder against the wall. "Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you're just too busy dreaming about your next private jet trip." He snatched a textbook from Patrick's hand, a worn copy of the Odyssey, and deliberately ripped out a page, letting it flutter to the ground like a fallen leaf. "This garbage won't help you out here, kid. This is the real world." The lanky one, Spike, snatched Patrick's backpack, emptying its contents onto the grimy floor. A half-eaten apple rolled away, a crumpled drawing of a robot, and a small framed photo of a man with an unmistakable, powerful physique. Rex picked up the photo, his eyes narrowing. "Oh, look at this," he mocked, holding it up for his friends. "Is this your old man, Patrick? Looks like he's been hitting the gym. Too bad he's not here to save you now, huh?" The stocky one, Brute, kicked at the scattered items, crushing the apple under his heavy boot. A collective gasp rippled through the small group of onlookers, quickly stifled by fear. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the bullies' taunts and the distant, almost imperceptible sound of heavy footsteps approaching from the main hall. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Have you ever seen someone stand up to bullies like this? Patrick's eyes, though still defiant, flickered with a hint of despair as he watched his belongings being desecrated. The drawing, a gift for his father, was now crumpled and torn. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of fear and the faint, sweet smell of the crushed apple. Rex tossed the photo frame back at Patrick, letting it clatter to the ground near his feet. "You know, Patrick," he continued, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl, "we're tired of you acting like you're better than us. Maybe a little lesson in humility is what you need." He raised a hand, his intention clear, and the few onlookers flinched, some turning their heads away, unable to watch. The silence from the crowd was a heavy blanket, suffocating any hope of intervention. It was as if the entire school held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The bullies had no idea who they were truly dealing with, not just in Patrick, but in the shadow that was steadily growing longer behind them. And if you want to see more stories like this, stories where the unexpected hero emerges from the shadows, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds, or any of the other incredible transformations we bring to life on this channel. It's moments like these, when the world holds its breath, that truly define us. Rex's hand was still raised, poised to strike, when a deep, resonant voice, calm yet carrying an undeniable authority, cut through the tense silence like a steel blade. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" The voice was accented, familiar, and utterly devoid of fear. It wasn't loud, but it resonated through the quad, causing Rex's hand to freeze mid-air. The bullies slowly turned, their sneers faltering as they faced the figure who had just entered the quad. The man stood tall, his baseball cap now removed, revealing a face that was instantly recognizable, etched with lines of experience and an unwavering resolve. His eyes, the color of glacial ice, fixed on Rex with an intensity that made the bully visibly gulp. The first subtle sign that something was profoundly wrong for the bullies wasn't the voice, but the sheer, unyielding presence of the man. He hadn't moved beyond the entrance to the quad, yet his stillness was more menacing than any aggressive posture. His gaze, unwavering, seemed to bore into Rex, stripping away his bravado. The leader's confident smirk wavered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. He tried to recover, puffing out his chest. "Who the hell are you, old man?" "This is none of your business," but his voice lacked its earlier conviction, a tremor betraying his unease. The lanky one, Spike, nudged Brute, a silent question in his eyes. The crowd of onlookers, initially frozen in fear, now began to stir, a low murmur rippling through them. A few students gasped, their eyes widening in disbelief as they recognized the iconic face. "No way," one whispered. "Is that—" The man took a single deliberate step forward, and the sound of his boots echoed unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. His eyes, though still calm, held a glint that was anything but. He didn't raise his voice, but his next words were delivered with the weight of an immovable object. "It becomes my business," he stated, his gaze sweeping over the scattered books and the crumpled drawing, then settling back on Rex. "When you lay a hand on my son." The revelation hung in the air, a shockwave that rippled through the quad. Patrick, who had been staring at the ground, looked up, his eyes meeting his father's, a mixture of relief and awe washing over his face. The bullies' faces, moments ago filled with arrogance, now drained of color. Rex's jaw went slack. The realization dawned on them, slow and terrifying. This wasn't just some random old man. This was the old man. The confirmation of identity hit the bullies like a physical blow. Rex stumbled back a step, his bravado evaporating. Your son?" he stammered, his eyes darting from Patrick to the man, then back again, as if trying to reconcile the image of the legendary figure with the quiet father standing before him. The man, Arnold Schwarzenegger, didn't answer with words. Instead, his right hand, a massive, calloused instrument of power, slowly uncurled from a loose fist. The muscles in his forearm flexed, a subtle ripple of power beneath the skin. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible, but it spoke volumes. The crowd, now fully aware, gasped audibly. A few students fumbled for their phones, eager to capture the impossible scene unfolding before them. Arnold's gaze remained fixed on Rex, a silent challenge. "You seem to have forgotten," he said, his voice now carrying a low, dangerous rumble, "that respect is earned, not taken by force." He then took another step, his movement fluid and powerful, a predator assessing its prey. Rex, trying to regain some semblance of control, puffed out his chest again, though his eyes betrayed his fear. "We don't care who you are, old man. We run this school," he blustered, but his voice cracked slightly. Spike and Brute, though clearly intimidated, tried to flank Arnold, attempting to look tough. Arnold didn't even acknowledge them directly. His focus remained on Rex. With a sudden, almost imperceptible shift of his weight, he moved. It wasn't a lunge, but a precise, economical motion. As Spike, emboldened by Rex's bluster, lunged forward with a clumsy punch, Arnold simply sidestepped, his movement a blur. Spike, off balance, stumbled past him, crashing into Brute with a surprised yelp. The impact sent both bullies sprawling to the ground in a heap of flailing limbs and curses. The crowd erupted in a mix of gasps and cheers. It was a demonstration of skill, not brute force, a testament to years of disciplined training. Rex, seeing his cronies incapacitated, finally understood the gravity of his situation. His face was a mask of pure terror. He tried to back away, but Arnold was already there, blocking his escape. Arnold didn't touch him, didn't even raise his voice. He simply stood, a towering, immovable presence. "You think you're strong because you pick on those weaker than you?" Arnold asked, his voice a low, chilling whisper that somehow carried across the quad. "That is not strength. That is cowardice." He then bent down with surprising agility for a man of his size and picked up Patrick's crumpled drawing of the robot. He carefully smoothed it out, his large fingers surprisingly gentle. "This," Arnold said, holding up the drawing, "is creativity. This is imagination. This is what you tried to destroy." He then looked at Rex, his eyes piercing. "And you," he continued, "you tried to break his spirit. You tried to make him feel small." He straightened up, his posture radiating an almost palpable power. The air around them crackled with tension. The other students watched in stunned silence, their phones forgotten, captivated by the unfolding drama. Even Spike and Brute, slowly picking themselves up, stood frozen, their earlier aggression replaced by a dawning realization of their utter insignificance. Rex, utterly defeated, could only stammer, I didn't know." Arnold cut him off, his voice firm. "Ignorance is no excuse for cruelty." He then gestured towards Patrick's scattered belongings. "Pick them up." Rex hesitated, glancing at his dazed friends, then back at Arnold's unyielding gaze. The message was clear. He slowly, reluctantly began to gather Patrick's books and the crushed apple, his movements clumsy and humiliated. The crowd watched, a collective sense of justice washing over them. As Rex awkwardly collected the items, Arnold turned his attention to Spike and Brute, who were now standing nervously, avoiding his gaze. "And you two," he said, his voice still calm but laced with an undeniable authority. "You think being part of a group makes you strong? True strength comes from within, from standing up for what is right, not from ganging up on the innocent." He then pointed to the graffiti on the wall behind them, the crude symbols of their gang. "Clean that up! All of it!" The two bullies exchanged a look of disbelief, then resignation. They knew they had no choice. Arnold then turned to Patrick, a gentle smile finally gracing his lips. He handed him the smoothed-out drawing. "You okay, son?" Patrick nodded, a small, relieved smile breaking through his earlier fear. "Yeah, Dad. Thanks." The simple exchange, the quiet affection between father and son, was a stark contrast to the earlier aggression, and it resonated deeply with the watching students. It was a powerful moment, a testament to the quiet strength of a parent protecting their child. The main confrontation, though not a physical brawl in the traditional sense, was a masterclass in psychological dominance. Arnold, with his calm demeanor and unwavering presence, completely disarmed the bullies. Rex, still on his knees, fumbled with Patrick's backpack, his hands trembling. He tried to shove the books back in, but his movements were jerky, his face flushed with shame. Arnold watched him, his expression unreadable, allowing the humiliation to sink in. Spike and Brute, meanwhile, began to scrape at the graffiti with their fingernails, a futile effort that only highlighted their helplessness. "You think you're tough," Arnold stated, his voice carrying across the quad. "But all I see are three boys who are afraid. Afraid of not being in control. Afraid of not being respected." He then walked over to the wall where the graffiti was, his shadow falling over Spike and Brute. "Respect isn't given because you demand it with threats. It's given because you earn it with your actions, with your character." He then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded cleaning wipe, handing it to Spike. "Here, you'll need this." The gesture, though seemingly small, was a final, undeniable assertion of his authority. Rex finally managed to zip up Patrick's backpack, his eyes avoiding Arnold's. He stood up slowly, his shoulders slumped. We won't bother him again," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. Arnold simply nodded, his gaze still intense. "Good, because if you do," he said, his voice dropping to a low, gravelly tone that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present, "you'll be dealing with more than just me." The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air, a promise of consequences far beyond a simple schoolyard scuffle. The crowd, which had grown significantly, watched in awe. A young girl, no older than 7, who had been hiding behind her older sister, peered out, her eyes wide with wonder. She'd had seen the Terminator on TV, but never like this. Not as a protector, a quiet force of justice. Her sister, a high school senior, gently squeezed her hand, a silent message that sometimes heroes walk among us in unexpected forms. Arnold then turned his back on the humiliated bullies who were now frantically trying to scrub the wall clean and walked over to Patrick. He placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "You handled yourself well, son," he said, a note of pride in his voice. "You stood your ground." Patrick looked up at his father, a newfound respect and admiration shining in his eyes. He knew his dad was strong, but seeing him calmly dismantle the bully's power without a single punch, just with his presence and words, was something else entirely. The defeat of the antagonists was complete, not through violence, but through an overwhelming display of moral and physical authority. The bullies, stripped of their power and their audience, were left to face the consequences of their actions, not just from Arnold, but from the silent judgment of their peers. The crowd's perception had shifted dramatically. The fear that had gripped them earlier was replaced by a sense of awe and a quiet understanding of true strength. As Arnold and Patrick began to walk away, a small, elderly janitor who had been watching from a doorway stepped forward. He gave Arnold a respectful nod, a silent acknowledgement of the justice that had been served. Arnold returned the nod, a brief, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. It was a human moment, a shared understanding between two men who understood the value of hard work and standing up for what's right. Arnold placed his arm around Patrick's shoulder, guiding him towards the exit. The afternoon sun, finally breaking through the clouds, cast a long golden light across the quad, illuminating the now scrubbed wall and the still shaken bullies. As they walked, Arnold leaned down, speaking softly to his son. "Remember, Patrick," he said, his voice carrying a profound wisdom. "True power isn't about how much muscle you have or how loud you can shout. It's about character. It's about standing up for yourself and for others, even when it's difficult." They reached the main entrance, the heavy boots of Arnold and the lighter steps of Patrick echoing in the now empty hallway. The school, once a place of fear for Patrick, now felt different, imbued with a new sense of safety. Arnold paused at the door, looking back one last time at the quad, where the three bullies were still scrubbing, their heads bowed in shame. He then turned and walked out into the fading sunlight, his figure silhouetted against the bright sky, Patrick walking proudly beside him. The message was clear, etched into the very fabric of the afternoon. Respect isn't taken by force, it's earned by integrity and courage. Silent doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes the quietest person carries the greatest power, a power that can change an entire situation with just a look, a word, or a simple, unwavering presence.